Hi, how are we doing? Just going to give it a moment before I kind of start waffling on as normal. Okay. Sorry if I'm a minute late. Slight technical difficulties right at the outset there. Some of you may or may not know I'm back in the studio. This is part of our Hove studio. And it's nice to be back in a very strange way. I guess a bit of normality is actually nice. So Groundhog Day has been kind of broken up a little bit. It's kind of weird because it means less time with the family, and that's always going to be a pretty bad thing, I guess, from my point of view, hopefully from theirs as well. But yeah, it's been nice to be back. We've been carrying out some Zoom consultations. We've been preparing the space more for reopening on the 4th of July, which still seems to be our date that is looking more and more like it's set in stone, which is great. Been sourcing and ordering lots of PPE, lots of protective equipment to keep everybody safe, and obviously working out those guidelines and those policies and procedures that are in place and will be in place to keep everybody as safe as possible. So it's good actually. It feels exciting again, and really looking forward to seeing our current clients. It's been a long time. I'm sure they're keen to crack on and continue their journey of tattoo removal or skin rejuvenation, if that's what they're in for. And it'll be lovely to meet some new clients as well. I've been carrying out some Zoom consultations this week, so that's been really, really good, really productive, really useful. Lovely to meet some potential or some new clients. And yeah, so the future's looking good. We'll see what happens over the next few weeks, whether we get a bit of a second wave. I fear we will. Some people seem to have forgotten that there's a pandemic, and it's a bit worrying. I understand that there are certain things around that's making it difficult for some people, but we do still have a pandemic, and we still need to follow the majority of the rules that are in place. So hopefully people can continue to do that. Okay, so what are we doing today? So Q&A, we're now doing this fortnightly, just because we're planning to reopen again. It's becoming a little bit trickier to kind of do this weekly. It's something that I'm really enjoying doing. I have really enjoyed doing. I've had some really positive feedback about as well. So it's something that will continue to do. But we're going to do it every fortnight. I'm going to do it on a Wednesday evening at 7 o'clock. So if you do know anybody that potentially would benefit from this information, please let them know, send them the link, get them to subscribe to our YouTube channel, watch it with them if you can, obviously from a 2 meter distance, you know what I mean. So we're going to continue to do this. And as I say, feedback's been good. It's been good for me to get a lot of information out there. And some of the clients, or some of the future clients and new clients, have told me that they've actually found great comfort in watching it on a weekly basis, because they've been wanting to get rid of a tattoo for so long, and it's really affected them. And by tuning in and looking at this and watching this and learning about the removal and educating themselves, they've found some comfort in that. So I'm really pleased that that's helped. Even if it's only helped 1 or 2 people out there, it's been absolutely worth doing. And it's kind of kept me in touch as well. So the tattoo we're going to talk about, first of all, we're going to talk about a tattoo specifically, and then I'm going to answer some questions that have come in kind of over the last 2 weeks, and questions that have come up from speaking to other clients and potential new clients around sort of a misunderstanding of certain things. And then if there's any questions that come in as well, that'd be fantastic. I'm sure that our #1 fan, Mitchell, will be posting a question at some point, or he better be, because if he misses a night, he'll be in trouble. So I posted this image on Facebook this morning, and on the event for this. And so this is the tattoo we're going to be discussing tonight. Actually, it works quite well in here. Normally, when I've been doing this, it's been really hard to show it on the screen because of reflection and glare. There is a little bit there, but I think you get a really good understanding. So that's to the right of the stomach. It's a fairly large tattoo. It's pretty imposing, and initially it does look quite dark, but actually I think that this will treat incredibly well. If you've seen the photo of the arm, the full sleeve that we've been treating, that's been in Bristol, and it's the Greek face at the top, and it's really dark, and then one treatment has really lightened it. I think it's going to have a similar effect on this one, because it's quite grainy. So as I always say, and I'm sure some people are probably bored of hearing me say, we're very much governed by how a tattoo is applied as to how it removes. Anything that's deeper, darker, and denser always takes longer to remove than something that's lighter and more superficial. Grainy tattoos are less dense. So that means that they will treat better, they will treat quicker, because at the end of the day, that is shading. It's not, deep, dark outline. Yes, there's some darker ink in there. And yes, there is a little bit of outline, but a lot of that is shading. Once you get up into the antlers, it becomes darker and a bit denser. So that's going to take a bit longer. The outline around the muzzle, the nose, around the eye, around the features, some of the ears, that's a bit darker. But the outline across the top of the back, that's quite light. So I think we will make huge progress even after 1 or 2 treatments. I think we're going to see a big difference. How many treatments will it take to fully remove? We have to say between 4 and 8, as we normally do say. We can't be more specific than that. We would know much more after the first treatment. But, it's all going to fade at different rates. Even the blues, even the greens are pretty light and superficial. It wouldn't surprise me if the majority of that blue and green went after the first treatment because it's so light and superficial. Some of the darker green, some of the darker blue might take another 1 or 2 treatments, but it is going to treat very, very quickly. And I know that this client actually is in 2 minds as to whether they will fade it down to cover it or whether they will actually get full removal. I think initially they were kind of thinking, well, I'm probably going to get it reworked. Clearly, the more you fade a tattoo, the more choice you then have as to what goes over the top, and the less compromise you have to make. But it also depends on pain, time, cost. I say pain as in how much you're willing to go through to get to the stage that you want, or the stage that you want really for that tattoo, so that you can get it covered. Then obviously you compromise. If you want to go through more treatments, you've got less to compromise with. Time, because it takes time. We treat you every 10 weeks. So if we treat you, or if say we're going to carry out 4 treatments, then that's going to take 30 weeks, basically, because we have 1, 10 weeks later we have the second, and so on. So 30 weeks, then you've got to wait 3 months after that final treatment to get it covered. So you are talking about, even if you're just fading it to cover it, best part of a year, realistically, really. But why would you rush? Why would you rush into it? Hopefully this time it's going to be there for life. It's going to be something that you absolutely love and cherish and you've thought about for a long time. So don't rush. There is nothing fast about tattoo removal, even if you've got the fastest, safest machines in the world, the PicoSures that we have. It still takes time. We're very lucky. Sometimes, every now and again, we get a tattoo and we do carry out 2 treatments, even 1 treatment. I've had a couple of tattoos in the whole time we've been doing this where we carried out 1 treatment and it's gone. But that is incredibly rare. 2 to 3 treatments, sometimes 4 to 5 to 6 treatments. Yes, definitely. 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, occasionally it even takes more than 10 treatments. Sometimes we could be up to 12 treatments because of the application of the tattoo, or there's a health implication, or there's normally something that would give us difficulty. Those variables that I've spoken about so many times before, a couple of those go against you, and it makes our job a lot more difficult. So I'm off track again, as I normally go. Back to this tattoo. Just going to show you if you've just joined. So this is the tattoo we're talking about. I think it will treat very, very well, and I think we'll see a big difference even after just a few treatments. So that's really good. The location is on the torso, which is good. It's another variable that we have to take into account. Hands and feet, extremities always take longer to remove than something that's closer to your heart. Generally, all these rules are general rules. Sometimes they make no difference to somebody. Sometimes they make actually a difference. Sometimes when you removing a full sleeve, the ink towards the wrist takes longer to remove than on the shoulder. And you can see that. Sometimes it doesn't at all. So these are variables that can or can't, may or may not play a part or make a difference to the actual removal process. But they're rules, we try and figure out every tattoo. Every tattoo is different. Every person is different. And the more we understand about that person and about that tattoo, the better guess we can make as to how many treatments and how it's going to treat. And then when we do come into a sticky point where sometimes tattoos plateau, they don't want to go, they get a bit stubborn, we can rethink and we can rethink our protocols and our treatment plan and diversify, go off piste and try something else. It's normally something that we've learned from removing other tattoos. And that's the biggest thing, really. You can do all the theory in the world, but it's mainly about experience. We must have treated over 2,000 tattoos now. So we've got a lot of experience, which stands us in good stead for, you know, tackling more complicated tattoos. So it's a big tattoo. We've talked about location, but actually this is quite a sensitive area. So would we treat all of this tattoo in one go? It's not too much ink. It's not too much ink to treat in one go. I wouldn't necessarily treat too much more than this in one go, but it's because it's quite light and superficial. I definitely would treat this in one go. If it was jet black, really deep, really dark, you know, I don't know, like a really thick line mandala type tattoo, and it was that kind of size, maybe I'd think about splitting it in two. The only reason I'd possibly split this into two is because it's a sensitive location. That part of the stomach, you know what it's like. If you just give it a little tickle, you can feel that it's sensitive. You know that it is. There's a kind of tickly spot just down there to the right or left of your belly button, round towards the side. But it gets me every time. may or may not get you. But it is a sensitive area. So I think, you know, what we would probably do is a couple of test patches when we got the client in, once we've opened, on a couple of different areas so that they're aware of exactly how it feels. And then get them back 24 hours later or whenever's convenient or appropriate, and then start with a treatment and start on one side and work and probably keep an open mind. And if they're okay, if they're comfortable enough and if they can go through that, then we'll go through the whole thing. If they are struggling, we can cut it off halfway, come back 2 weeks later. Now, we can safely treat a different part of a tattoo after 2 weeks. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. It depends really on the nature of the tattoo. This one, I probably would. And that's because of the nature of it. It's quite light and superficial in many ways. So that gives the body less to deal with. If it's a really thick, dark tattoo and the body has too much to do with, the client may feel a bit run down afterwards. The after effects are going to be much bigger, and therefore aftercare is going to be more difficult, potentially with blisters, etc. maybe. And therefore it's going to be a difficult thing to manage. So we'd like longer healing time. But also, you know, it's about how much work your body has to do. And the more work your body has to do, the longer we would leave it in between. Because if we overload your body, you're not going to get enough fade. You're not going to get the progress and the results that you want and that we want. So if it was a really dark tattoo, I might say, well, it'll come back in 6 weeks. You could even say treat each half concern and actually a bigger concern. Because at the end of the day, it takes as long as it takes. It's got to be safe. And then results come second. Fortunately, we can do it that way around with this laser because it is so effective. So we may treat all of this in one go, we may not. Again, we're going to kind of be led by a few factors, but by the client primarily with this. Could you use numbing cream? Yeah, you could use numbing cream. Generally, we don't recommend numbing cream because it changes the texture of the skin and potentially acts as a barrier. Now, we do have a handful of clients that use numbing cream because their tattoos are in quite delicate, quite sensitive areas, or they're very big, or their pain threshold maybe is not quite as high as some other people. There can be different reasons. Sometimes it is an absolute, a physical fear. Sometimes it's a mental thing. But more often than not, it's because it hurts a bit. And so, or quite a lot, some people would say, but again, different pain thresholds. So yeah, you can, but I would always say, come in, have a test patch, see how you feel, and then make a decision. Because until you felt it, you've no idea. And for most people, the fear of the unknown is there. And actually, when you come to treat people, that is much worse than the reality. The fear of the unknown is normally a lot worse than the reality. So you fire a laser at them, they've been really worried about it, and they go, "Oh, is that it?" That's normally the reaction that we get. Sometimes it isn't. Very occasionally it isn't. But most of the time it is. And they actually don't know what they've been winding themselves up for. So don't let pain be a barrier. Get in touch, get a test patch done, and then you'll actually know how it feels. So that would be it. And then, I think I really do think that this would treat incredibly well. I'm just going to show you one more time for those people that have joined recently. Perfect. Okay. Good. And as I said, I think I've already covered the fact that we can treat all those colors. Now, my only kind of question mark around this tattoo, well, I've got two. One is I know that it's a cover up. I know that a part of this tattoo is a cover-up, and I'm guessing that it's the darker bit around the neck. But because I can't see what's underneath and the tattoo over the top is quite light and superficial, I'm guessing that the tattoo underneath is fairly light and superficial too. So the chances are that will remove at the same time as the tattoo on top, as the cover-up. If it was a darker, denser, deeper tattoo underneath, you'd probably see it a little bit. Also, that would mean that the tattoo on top would fade quicker and then probably reveal the one underneath. And then we'd be chipping away at that, and that would take a little bit more time. So that's kind of the way that it works. So because of that, it might take a little bit longer, but it might not, because for all those reasons I've just said. And then the other slight question mark is, sometimes when you get tattoos like this, you've got in the body almost like a kind of a bit of a brownish sort of color. And sometimes artists will mix inks together to create certain colors. Sometimes they don't, sometimes they do. But what happens is, because we've got two different wavelengths, we will use the wavelength for the colder colors, the 755, which is attracted to your reds, your blacks, blues, and greens, etc. We'd always use that first, just to remove any dark tones, even in the warmer colors. And then that could reveal other colors in there. So potentially we could fire it at that body that looks a bit brownish, and it could be a bit of red mixed in there, and that would then be revealed. Now that's not a problem, because we've got another wavelength that we can use. But sometimes tattoos reveal things that you're not expecting. Sometimes you get exactly the same thing that happens with white. White can be mixed in with black to make gray. Sometimes you treat it, white's revealed. Unfortunately, that white then turns a dirty gray, because it's not a color in the spectrum of light, therefore lasers aren't attracted to it. And then it becomes really, really difficult to remove, but you don't actually see it until it's too late. And the client doesn't always know that it's mixed in to make that color either. So it's a tricky one. Sometimes colors do hide in there that you don't expect. We try and get all that information during a consultation, but as I say, if the client actually doesn't know it, then they can't pass that information on to you. So sometimes we do get some surprises. Okay, so that's it for that one. Oh, in terms of cost, sorry, this would be about 260, 280 pounds per treatment. However, that would be the first full treatment, no matter if we split that into two halves or not. And after that treatment, we would reassess the amount of ink that is left on that tattoo, because there will be less, because I know that it's going to fade really well. And then we would reassess how much ink is left and reprice based on that. So let me just show you one more time. We try and work with our clients in that way as much as possible. Some tattoos you can't. Again, go back to the kind of the mandala type tattoo. If it's line work like that, we're not going to chip away at, we're not going to fade a lot of shading first of all and then be chipping away at the dark ink. We're just going to be chipping away at the dark ink. So the cost of something like that is going to remain the same throughout, from start to finish. A tattoo like that one, it's going to change. The cost is going to change, because the amount of ink that we're treating is going to change. Now, it's normally, if a tattoo will fade very well after the first treatment, then it will stay consistent throughout. So we do try and work with our clients in that way, because it's the fairest way to do it. I've got a question coming from Mitch. Thanks, Mitch. Nice to see you, or nice to hear from you again this evening. Hi, Dan. After having a tattoo removed, how soon after can you have a new tattoo put over the top? Good question. We have been talking about potential cover-ups, and actually a cover-up involving that tattoo already. Our guidelines is 3 months. So 3 months after having your final laser tattoo removal, you can get a cover-up. That's our guidelines. However, I know that some tattoos, most tattoos, will continue to fade up to 6 months. So there is a theory that if you then put a new tattoo, on top of an old tattoo that you've just been treating, or you've treated, there is a theory that it may continue to fade a little bit more, and therefore that tattoo that's been put on top will fade a little bit. I don't think it actually works like that, because the bit that's fading is the ink that you've hit, and therefore that's the bit that's affected, not the ink that you've just put in. It doesn't work in that way. However, some people think that. Because of that, some artists won't actually apply a tattoo for 6 months. Some will wait longer, but I don't really see the point in that. But that's up to them. If you choose an artist and they say to you, no, we're going to wait 6 months, 9 months, a year, then that's their choice. And that may be because they've experienced something in the past relating to that, and they've got good reason. For us, we say 3 months because we feel that actually everything's healed enough, that the fading has done its job, and it's actually ready now. Your skin is ready now to accept some new ink. So that's what we say, 3 months. Thanks, Mitchell. Thanks for that. So just a couple more questions that have come in over the week. And if there are any other questions out there from anybody, that'd be great as well. So can all tattoos be fully removed? No. We say that we can fully remove around 90% of all tattoos. And the reason that there's that 10% that we might struggle with is because of the application and the other variables. So if a tattoo is incredibly deep, dark and dense, and it's been colored in 2-3 times, or it's got 3 cover-ups on it, it's going to be incredibly difficult, and we can't guarantee that end result. We can't really even guarantee the end result of a standard tattoo, but I know that we can fully remove most standard tattoos. It's just a question of how many treatments, and most of those tattoos will be removed within 4 to 8 treatments. I know because we're doing it. We're doing it every day, not for the last 2-3 months, but we are doing it. The other variables that make it difficult, or more easy, but mainly difficult, are around health, medication, location. So medication, had an incident this week where I was speaking to a client, and they're on a medication to suppress their immune system. Now that's gonna play a part. We don't think it's going to affect healing, but it may affect progress, because if it's your immune system, your lymphatic system that deals with the ink, it draws it away, and anything you can do to boost your immune system will help a little bit. If you're suppressing that immune system, you're doing the opposite, and actually it means that progress might be incredibly slow, but it's still down to the individual and their body. So at that stage, it's kind of small steps. It's test and see what happens, test and see what happens, making sure the recovery, the healing and everything else that goes along with it is okay and safe. That's the most important thing, that it's safe. If it's safe, then we get in the progress and the results that we want. So location of a tattoo, anything on your extremities or closer to your extremities, always takes longer to remove than something that's closer to your heart, in theory, in general. Lifestyle, if you smoke 40 fags a day and drink 10 pints every night and have a terrible diet, your tattoo is going to fade a lot slower than somebody that's at the gym every day, eating an incredibly balanced diet, drinking lots of water. It's common sense, isn't it? They're the main things: the application of the tattoo, how, when it was applied, what's in the ink, whether it was applied by a professional artist or not, how deep they've gone, how thick their lines are. All these things play a part. Just because you've got the most effective laser in the world doesn't mean that everything is straightforward. Definitely not. Everybody is different. Every tattoo is different. So you can apply one sort of theory to one tattoo on one person, and it works really well, and you use that setting and you think, fantastic, I've got that licked now. And then you see a similar situation with somebody else, you try it and it has a completely different result. So we are constantly having to rethink our plans, our protocols for each individual client and each individual tattoo. So that's why I was saying that experience is really, really important, because it gives you a bigger arsenal basically to work with. Are certain colors more difficult? No, not really with us. It's not about the color, because we've got 2 different wavelengths that can treat all the colors in the spectrum of light. It's about the application. So no matter what color it is, if it's really deep, dark and dense, it's going to be more difficult to remove than whatever color it is if it's lighter and more superficial. That's the way it is. There is a kind of a rumor out there, an urban myth, if you like, that red has always been the hardest color to remove. It used to be the hardest color to remove because there wasn't a wavelength that was attracted to red. Blues and greens, there aren't as many lasers out there that have wavelengths that are attracted to blues and greens. We have 2 wavelengths that are attracted to all the colors in the spectrum of light. I do believe we were the first PicoSure in the UK to have the 532, which is attracted to those warmer colors. That was actually not an add-on, it was included in the laser. Previous to that, you had to buy it. So some people didn't, because it was incredibly expensive. So no, it's not about necessarily the color with us. It's about the application. Last one: are newer tattoos more difficult to remove than older tattoos? Generally, yes. But again, it comes down to the application. If you've got someone that hasn't really applied many tattoos and they don't do a very good job, they don't pack the ink in very tightly, and it's very grainy, it's going to remove easier, even if it was done 3 months ago. And that's how long we have to wait, by the way, to be able to start removing the tattoo. However, if you've got an artist who does really amazing traditional tattoos with really thick line work, very bold colors, beautiful, traditional style tattoos with the latest inks that are made to look fresher and last longer, then yeah, that's always going to be more difficult to remove than something that was 20, 30 years old that maybe has faded over time. The inks weren't as good. The application techniques weren't as good. The only struggle sometimes you can have with older tattoos is that ink has been in the skin for 20, 30 years and it can get stubborn. Not always. Most of the time, it's a slightly easier process, but it can. If you imagine it's been in those cells for 20, 30 years, it doesn't want to go anywhere. It's been there. It's kind of almost stuck. But most of the time, you can budget, especially with this laser. Okay, so I think that's it for me now. It might be time for a gin and tonic. Seems to be a common theme at the moment. Thank you very much for tuning in. And this is going to be, as I say, every fortnight now on a Wednesday evening. I've chosen that time because mainly I travel to Bristol on a Wednesday. I'm there in the evening, so I can always do this without impacting on the family, etc. And it's easier to manage. So we'll be 2 weeks' time. We'll still be here, I think, and then it'll be the one after that we'll be doing this from Bristol. Please get back to me with any thoughts, questions around anything that you've heard tonight. If you want to, email me at info@zapplaserstudio.co.uk. Go to our Facebook page and send us a message. You can always make a comment on this video afterwards. That's not a problem either at all. And please pass this on to anybody that you think might find this useful. Have a lovely evening, and I'll see you soon. Thank you very much.